Hello, and welcome back to Idea Sex, where we take an analytical lens to mysticism, spirituality, the esoteric, and phenomena not previously understood. My name is Kiara, the Mad Witch, and my hair is pinkish now. The irony is you can't really see it because I've got literal pink light over here. Hang on.
A few moments later.
You still can't see it. I went to my wonderful stylist and I was like, hey, I just want you to make my hair more blonde, like how it was when I was a young spring chicken, like a young Viking blonde, okay? And I watched her mix it and I was like, that looks really pink. And she was like, yeah, it'll fade out. And I was like, are you sure it looks really pink? And then she did the reveal and I was like, bitch, I love you, but that's pink. Can you make me blonde like this? The girl wants pink! She was really nice about it though. She offered to redo it for free, but I went home and I slept on it literally and was like, you know, it's pink, because one of my intentions for 2022 is to be more in surrender to the divine intelligence that I believe underpins all things. In other words, being better about going with the flow. Gotta lean with it, gotta rock with it. An accidental hair might not seem like much, but I'm starting small here. Because it's one thing to believe in this divine intelligence that underpins all things, that guides our lives, that is part of us, but it's another to actually trust that thing, which is what we're here to start talking about today. We rise up from the dust and clean my throat. The idea of a divine intelligence that surrounds us, guides our lives, is part of us, is obviously not a Kiara original idea, of course. It is something that I arrived at through the intercourse of ideas from different cultures, thinkers, and disciplines, aka idea sex. This cross-pollinating of ideas from different teachings and traditions. In many Western religions, this intelligence is conceptualized as a god or a pantheon of gods. In Eastern traditions, sometimes it takes more the form of energetics, like the Tao or the Absolute. And in science, they're finally starting to come around to the idea that this intelligence is actually a field of consciousness. Parapsychology is leading the charge there, but other disciplines are catching on as well, namely quantum physics, which we will talk about in the future. Today, I want to look at this idea just from one angle, which is Kundalini as described by Gopi Krishna. Can you focus? Can you focus? Me neither. It's called ADHD. There you go. Now, Gopi was a seemingly ordinary man. He had I think a government job that he held for like 40 years. So the course of his working career, he had a wife. I think he had a couple of kids, maybe. Ordinary, except for the fact that he meditated 3 hours every day before dawn.
Meanwhile,
hey Gopi, do you have any hobbies?
Yes, I sit and I don't have any thoughts for 20% of the day.
Shiva, how's my Indian accent?
Whatever.
well done.
So what is Kundalini? Kundalini has existed in cultures all over the world. The earliest known reference to it predates Christ by about 3,000 years, tracking back to the Indus Valley civilization. It's most commonly known as being like an Indian thing, but it actually exists in alchemical texts, in exoteric and esoteric texts, ancient Egypt, and even the Bible, which is where things get very interesting. But that's idea sex for another time. Today, suffice to say that Kundalini is an intelligent energy that sits coiled at the base of the human spine like a snake.
Meanwhile,
Like a snake.
I'm a snake.
So, important to note, it is not controlled by the person that it's in. It's not controlled by us. It is an intelligent energy that has a mind of its frickin' own. And when it's stimulated, it courses up the body, follows the channels in the body, and if it hits the top of your head, it erupts. Like a game of high striker. Ring-a-ding-dong! You're enlightened, man. When it comes out the crown chakra, it envelops the head in white light or a halo. And that's why we see halo symbolism, again, all over the world throughout history. Biblical, anything Abrahamic, we have halos, right? We've got halos in ancient India. We have halos in like Buddhist drawing stuff. So it's everywhere. And the reason is that it has its roots in this, what do you even call it? It is a biological process, as we'll talk about eventually, but it's also this spiritually transformative thing that perhaps exists. According to Gopi, the Kundalini energy is our own reproductive energy, and usually this energy flows down and out, winky face, But through certain spiritual practices, that flow can be reversed, and that energy, our creative life force energy, can start to go upward, Godward, if you will. It creates what Gopi calls an explosion of consciousness, and he posits that this biological process is responsible for both genius and madness. More on that later. Now, there's a lot of gurus today that claim to be enlightened, and I take it all with a grain of salt because you'll notice most of them use that to make money, which is incredibly ironic. But Gopi's story is interesting to me because apparently he woke up one day after his awakening and was able to write poetry in 7 languages. Now, I haven't been able to verify that, but honestly, I don't care. I don't care if he walked on water or shat rainbow jimmies. What I think is important about him is what he has attempted to do to bridge spirituality and science. Now, this little sliver of a book is a truly cogent argument for why we should be studying spiritual phenomena with all the scientific methods and vigor. Gopi Krishna's task is to bring the physiological bridge leading to higher states of consciousness to the attention of open-minded scientists and intelligent laymen for investigation. Though a vast volume of literature exists at present about human evolution, the biological organ responsible for it has remained a mystery. From the religious side, no explanation has been offered so far about the mystical trance and the religious experience. Gopi Krishna's disclosures about Kundalini thus provide, for the first time, a bridge between religion and science. Once the existence of the bridge is proved and accepted, thousands of seekers drawn from all over the world will train themselves for the supreme condition he describes in these and other writings. Those who succeed in this enterprise will investigate the metaphysical implications of their experience, thus laying a foundation for the science of consciousness. Lofty ambitions there, considering most people still don't believe in it and it was written in like the 70s. Gopi believed that this shift in energy from downward to upward would create literal change in the body, like something physical that we could observe. And Bentov, someone that we will talk about in a future video, actually came up with a model showing how our nervous system might change when people have these experiences. But a line from Gopi here: the advancement of man from a primitive to the present intellectual state, intellectualness, let me try that again, intellectual state, must be attended by certain physiological changes which we are not able to locate. So there is nothing wonderful in saying that there is a power which can transform the body and the brain of man. Already, this transformation is occurring, though in an imperceptible way. It occurs even in a child when he grows from infanthood to maturity. There is always a change in his brain so that later on his rational faculty, which is dormant when he is a child, becomes manifest. In the same way that the rational faculty in man has been in a very primitive or low state in the savages, but now is in a heightened condition. The reason for this is change and transformation in the brain. Modern researchers are not able to locate this change because the alteration occurs mainly in the nerve energy, which to the ancients was known as prana. Prana is the energy we use in thinking. Certain electrical discharges occur with any activity of the brain. These electrical disturbances vary in different states of consciousness. For instance, there is one in the state of sleep and another in the waking condition. Prana is the agent which causes these changes, though it is absolutely imperceptible. Scientists only measure the electrical discharges and not the mysterious agent which causes them. Now, he says that like it's conclusive, and I don't think it necessarily is, but I think it's absolutely worthy of investigation. If we could prove that subtle energy exists, we could make sense of so many of the woo-woo things, okay? Everything from energy healing to clairvoyance, and even things that aren't woo-woo. There's something called acquired savant syndrome, which is basically where someone gets bonked on the head really hard, and all of a sudden they're a mathematical genius, or they can speak like 13 languages that they don't actually know. This makes no sense, right? It's bizarre. Neuroscientists are puzzled by it. No one understands how it's possible. But it happens. There's a number of really well-documented cases. Again, not a woo-woo thing, just one of those real-life mysteries that exist out there. And we can kind of hypothesize about why something like that might happen. If we're not finding like a physical transformation in the brain, right, then there has to be something else. And the idea that Gopi is putting forward is that it is a subtle energy. Perhaps they become more open to information that transcends our conventional notions of time and space. Got really excited there. Yeah, I don't know how to make sense of it either unless there's something else going on, like traumatic brain injury, suddenly genius. To Gopi's points, it raises some questions, like can we pinpoint a biological mechanism in the brain that allows that to happen? Like if that's possible, can we systematize it? Can we figure out a way to like appropriately knock people on the head in just the right way so everyone like maximizes their potential? How easy would that be? It would save us so much work. It is interesting to compare Gopi's experience of enlightenment with Eckhart Tolle's. experience of enlightenment, for example. If you're not familiar, Eckhart Tolle is a modern spiritual guru. He's written a bunch of books, and he claims to have achieved spontaneous enlightenment, where basically one moment he was drowning in total mental agony, and the next he had boarded a cotton candy cloud of bliss and never came down. Come on, Mr. Eckhart! Are you for real? Gopi's experience, on the contrary, absolutely sucked, and this is much more in line with all the experiences of Kundalini awakening that I've read. After his initial awakening and experience of bliss, after his initial experience with Kundalini, which was very blissful, he experienced 12 years of alternating intense agony and bliss until he leveled out at this alleged enlightened state. But there's a lot that can go wrong in this process, apparently. For example, Gopi says that in its aborted form, and I quote, Kundalini energy produces things like psychics and mediums. So they're not enlightened, they're just weird. And that's where they cap out. That one doesn't sound so bad, but Kundalini energy can also lead to things like trauma, disease, and madness.
Nice.
The power, when aroused in a body not attuned to it with the help of various disciplines and not genetically mature for it, can lead to awful mental states, to almost every form of mental disorder, from hardly noticeable aberrations to the most horrible forms of insanity, to neurotic and paranoid states, to megalomania, and, by causing tormenting pressure on the reproductive organs, to an all-consuming sexual thirst that is never assuaged. Assuaged? Assuaged? I know what it means. It's like calmed. I just don't know how to say it. Assuaged.
Nobody cares.
The fact that hatha yoga practices can lead to insanity is widely known in India. They know what's up. Another point I want to make here is how these things are perceived in the West versus some other places in the world. If someone in the US, for example, starts seeing things or hearing voices, we consider those symptoms of insanity, and that person is probably going to be labeled as schizophrenic, shoved in a mental hospital, put on a lot of drugs. Whereas in another part of the world, these people are seen as having a certain set of skills and are taken by other people who have those skills and indoctrinated by them, groomed by an elder who also fills that role, whether it's a shaman or a sangoma or whatever, and they become functioning members of society, well-adjusted, who hold specific roles in their community, often that of a healer. Bonus points if they're struck by lightning. So whereas those people who are groomed, their gifts are groomed and given like a space to flourish, whereas they become functioning members of society in the West, schizophrenics are 4.5 times more likely to kill themselves, and schizophrenia affects an estimated 20% of the homeless population. So very different destinies. And I would be so interested to know how much of mental illness could possibly have psycho-spiritual roots. Again, we don't know, because no one knows where something like schizophrenia comes from. And obviously that's a really dramatic example, but we'll never know until we start studying these things. To conclude, Gopi believed that Kundalini energy is the biological mechanism responsible for human evolution up to this point, and it will continue to help us evolve into the golden age of humanity, which we've talked about quite a bit on this channel, so you know the one. And Gopi has this to say about the importance of Kundalini and trying to understand this shit that might exist. The only possible way for the race to survive lies in a psychological revolution, establishing the primacy of spirit over flesh in a manner that meets the demands of modern science and satisfies the present-day intellect. This would be empirical verification of a psychosomatic law that is acting behind all spiritual and supernormal phenomena witnessed in history. God damn! That's a revolution I want to be a part of! In the future, we will revisit the topic of Kundalini from a few different angles, so I think it would be cool to investigate how this energy process thing has made its way into the Bible, ancient Egypt, even the Bushmen of Africa. It exists everywhere, and that's kind of it's like a type of comparative analysis, looking at how it's existed in different cultures and how these people explain it. And then we'll also look at comparative analysis of different people's awakening Kundalini experience awakening stories. So if that interests you, do subscribe and join the guild. We would love to have you on this quest for answers to questions that most people are afraid to ask. And in any case, that's all the idea sex I got for you today. What do you think? Do you believe in this Kundalini stuff? Does it have merit? I would love to have idea sex with you in the comments. Thank you for joining me today. Hail to the power in the sight. And until next time, I hope you say Very, very blessed.
What? Kiara, why can't you talk?